This is lesson 7 on Beatrice, and I'm going to be analysing the notes that Joe Henderson chose for his solo from State of the Tenor. In this lesson, I'm going to look at Joe Henderson's solo from State of the Tenor, and it's quite a well-known version. Has Ron Carter on the bass, and the two of them do some very interesting things, changing harmony, etc. But the main difference, say, between the Joe Henderson solo and the Stan Getz solo is that the Joe Henderson solo is much freer because of the lack of chordal instrument accompanying. I'm going to look at some of the phrases in this and some of the harmonies used. So the opening phrase, beautiful, very lyrical, singable, not the same, but not dissimilar from the Stan Getz approach, a nice singable melody. Now up to that bit, you could probably sing that. It fits the chords nicely. Worth noting that actually the bass notes go F, C, and before going to G flat on the strong beat goes to D flat, up to G flat, implying that the first chord in the second bar is D flat major 7, and it sounds like this. Quite a nice effect there. When we get to the E flat major 7, it seems to be nice, resting on the G, and then suddenly you get this. Now, it's absolutely fine to play on the piano. They're all chord tones of E flat major 7, so it's a nice little flurry there, and there's nothing really out there. There's nothing that isn't easily explained. And we go into the next bar, and the inclusion of that B natural means it's more of a Dorian approach rather than an Aeolian one. If it was Aeolian, it would have been. So that just shows you there is a lot of variety in the way that different players approach a chord. In fact, later on he does something similar where he puts a B flat in. So it's quite nice to know what the several possibilities are. The next bar, after coming to rest on G, we've got another flurry of semiquavers. And again, we've got that bar where I've said it's really just D minor, not D minor to C minor, and this solo also has language that supports that. So in the saxophone solo, and the inclusion of an E would not fit over a C minor chord, so that's basically just a whole bar of D minor. Nice phrase, nice and melodic and very natural, and feels like it's going to the right note. It lands on A and the chord is A, so that's a good example of landing on the root and it's really strong. E flat's a bit strange because normally we associate that chord with the Lydian, but you know, both of them are great, and that's what Joe Henderson plays, so he's drawing it from B flat major 7. Next 2 bars is the 2-5-1 to D minor. And if you remember, the Stan Getz one was more of an idea that has a rhythmic idea. So up to that point, he's playing the similar scale that I'd suggested, which is the D harmonic minor. And then he comes to rest on the major 3rd of the D major. So that was weird, but maybe not weird, but it was just unusual. We weren't expecting that. In the Joe Henderson version, that was the Stan Getz one, in the Joe Henderson version, he draws his language from the Aeolian, which is D Aeolian, which goes up with the flat 6. So the phrase goes, and that's all derived from that scale. And then you've got something which I thought was quite weird. This definitely was weird, but it's got a vibe to it. So he goes, So I think the bass has got a D and another note. It seems to be very low. It's really tricky to hear it. And he hits basically an E flat when the chord is D. Something I would advise no one to ever do, but then Joe Henderson goes and does it. So why would I say not to emphasize E flat unless you're Joe Henderson? Because it's quite clashy. So unless you're doing it in a certain way, it might sound like a wrong note. For example, if you put the E flat in, you want to make them passing notes really. It's not too bad. If you put it somewhere where it's going to be really strong, so that would definitely sound weird. How come Joe gets away with it? Well, there's no chords and the bass is very low, and when he hits the E flat, he hits another E flat after that at the end of the bar, and then he comes down in a sort of glissando, which I can't do on the piano without sounding cheesy, but it's kind of like this, and then comes down. Listen to it, you'll see it works, but it's quite risk taking. Anyway, moving on. Got this nice little phrase in the last 4 bars. So the chord is G flat major 7. We've got a little idea which isn't quite ready to move in that direction, so it's a hangover from the previous bar. So we've got notes that fit G minor 7, but we've actually started the next bar. So it's kind of sounds weird, but again, there's only a bass note. So if you just got bass notes, you've got a lot more flexibility. Just something to note there that it goes to the major 3rd in the last but 1 bar, where it should really be. But he goes, because the bass is just playing F, so he's got that flexibility as well. But the chord actually says F minor, so just beware if you're playing with a chordal instrument and they're hammering out A flats. Your A natural, if you put one in, might sound a little bit strange. Nice little pattern at the end, with the intervals getting slightly bigger. 4th now. And if you compare it to the end of the Stan Getz solo, there he's also got a little pattern thing. So it's a nice place to do those kind of things. So if I was to sum up the solo, it's a typical Joe Henderson solo. It has a lot of melodic ideas. It also has melodic development, motivic development. You heard that at the end. I just played a little idea with intervals getting bigger. There's a lot of flurries of semiquavers grouped in 4s. For example, in the 2-5-1 to D minor. And there's a lot of that going on around in the 60s with people like McCoy Tyner grouping music into 4 notes, pentatonic patterns, and you get a lot of 4-note groupings. And this is kind of that language. I wouldn't say it was particularly pentatonic all the time, but there's definitely hints at that. And the freedom in the harmonic language, as I said, is enabled because there's no piano or guitar. And it's a really great version, and it is, when people say Beatrice, they do cite that particular version as one of the definitive tunes. So check it out, learn how to play the solo. In the next lesson, I'm going to look at the harmony of Beatrice and maybe just some insights into what's going on. And that was the analysis of Joe Henderson's solo on State of the Tenor. In my last lesson on Beatrice, I'm going to look at the harmony and give you an idea of what's actually going on as a whole.